Ah, the good old red pill story. You saw the title. You know why you're here. Let's get into it. My name's Ashley. I am a former leftist turned conservative. And I left the left about 3 years ago now in 2019. I also am going to apologize if you hear a bunch of weird banging or footsteps. I have two toddlers running around upstairs. A lot of people ask me why I left the left. And there are a lot of reasons. So I'm going to try to condense it as best as I can. And hopefully, this video won't be 9 hours long. So in 2016, I was a leftist. I was a militant atheist, a feminist, pro choice. I was a socialist, anti military, anti police. I supported a universal basic income, universal health care, like the whole 9 yards, my friends. I was in deep. I also wanted more social safety nets, more regulations put into place, a bigger role of the government, really. Wanted an income cap to limit the amount of money that one person could make, not realizing how detrimental that can be. And I didn't even realize how far left I had become. Because I was just stuck in all these echo chambers and I thought all of it made sense, you know? And like, I remember watching the Zeitgeist movies and being like, all of this is, yep, yeah, we need to live in this utopian society where everyone can share everything and nobody owns anything. So let's take it back to 2016 when my hatred for Donald Trump seeped through my veins and I drank all of the Kool-Aid that CNN delivered. I went home the night of the election after happily voting. Not really happily voting, I guess. I wasn't super excited to vote for Hillary Clinton. I just felt like that was the only choice because I needed to keep Trump out of office. That was my goal. But went home from work. You know, I worked second shift, so I got home real late. My then boyfriend, now husband, was there. And we flipped on the news and we started watching the election results. And when they called it really late that night, I lost my shit, to put it very simply. I started crying hysterically. I was yelling about how, you know, women's rights are gone and gay marriage is gone and he's going to ruin this country and how could people have voted for him and all these people are horrible. And like, I believed he was the racist, homophobic, transphobic, xenophobic, just everything. And then my husband looked at me and he said, well, hold on, because I actually voted for Trump. And he had originally not planned on voting. He had liberal views, but he was pretty non-political. And I started chastising him, and I was like, you don't even know anything about politics, because, you know, I thought I knew all of the things. And we got in a big fight. And then over the course of the next year, you know, I continued hating Donald Trump, and he started learning more about politics and philosophy and ideology. That's kind of where he started. He started from philosophy, moved into politics, and I've kind of done the reverse of that, basically. I was like really involved in politics, like really, really all about it, and then I started learning more about philosophy and ideology and that kind of thing, and just thinking. But anyway, getting ahead of myself, because I wasn't thinking in 2016 still. But the more that he, you know, kind of started branching out and listening to other perspectives and looking into various like social issues and topics, learning more about everything, just seeking knowledge, he started changing his views. And he started kind of becoming more conservative. And he wanted to talk about this. He wanted to have conversations, debates. So we started watching some like content on YouTube of all kinds of different people: Jordan Peterson, Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, branched into like the really conservative people like Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Candace Owens, all of those guys. And, you know, I absolutely hated what most of them had to say at first. And we would sit down, we would watch a video together, and we would discuss. It was just a way to start a conversation, a way to just have a different viewpoint presented, right? And the more we did this, the more that I realized that most of my opinions were based on emotional appeal. I couldn't really back up most of what I said. It was clear that I wasn't thinking the logic through all the way, and I definitely did not know hardly anything about the history behind things like socialism and abortion and Planned Parenthood and like a lot of these types of things. So I would tend to just get angry. Like, I didn't want to admit I was wrong. And a lot of times when my opinions or viewpoints were challenged, it felt like a personal attack. And I think now that's just because I was so emotionally invested in politics at the time. Like, I could not separate my emotions from my political perspectives. And I think that's a big flaw with the left. They run on emotion. And I'm not saying that politics is not emotionally charged, because it is. There are many issues that are really important, and they are emotionally charged, and they bring out, emotional responses in both sides of the argument, right? But the left tends to blindly just think, well, if it sounds good, it is good. And just because something sounds good in theory does not mean it plays out well in practice, So the more that we, had these conversations, and the more that I realized that my ways of thinking could be flawed, I finally at some point had to just be like, okay, I need to actually look into things. So I started doing my own research, and just whatever topic it was, when it came to abortion, I learned more about gestational development and how abortions are actually performed, and the history of Planned Parenthood. When it came to things like gun reform, which I heavily believed in, I went and started actually looking into the facts that I had heard a lot of people in some of the videos we watch present, like defensive use of firearms, how many regulations there actually are. And then I started also just thinking through things logically, instead of from this vastly emotionally charged area. I tried to take a step back and just think. And I started growing really quiet on social media. I stopped posting so much about politics. I stopped posting all the memes and doing all my rants and getting in internet arguments, basically. And, I think it wasn't until about late 2018 that I had kind of the biggest moment. It was late 2018, early 2019, and there's a big abortion debate going on with Virginia's abortion bill. And there was just a bunch of statements made by Kathy Tran about how they were advocating for the bill would have allowed abortion up until birth. And at the time, my husband had first told me about this, and I said, that's not happening. Nobody wants abortion up until birth. That's crazy. You're crazy, And then I went and watched the actual clips, and then I went and watched the clips of Ralph Northam talking about if a baby survived an abortion, they would make it comfortable and make a decision. And a lot of people try to frame that in a very specific way, but he said what he said. That was the biggest moment that I just sat back and went, this is wrong. This is clearly wrong. And it made me really start reassessing. Made me really start thinking about, what I stood for and why I believed what I believed. And I had already started doing this, but I just feel like that was just one of the biggest turning points. And it kicked up my need for knowledge in the abortion debate. And man, I've listened to so many abortion debates and learned a lot about gestational development. And I just did not have the knowledge. I just did not know when, when the brainstem formed and when they have arms and legs and when it stops being that clump of cells that everybody, talks about. Because I used to use those arguments. I used to use the clump of cell arguments and the parasite argument. And then when information was presented to me, I decided to change my mind. And that was the first thing that I really said, okay, I'm not pro-choice, I'm pro-life. And it was also within 2019 that everything just kind of started compounding. It was like I akin it to bubbles bursting. You have all these thought bubbles around your head and a couple really big ones pop. And then it's all the rest follows suit. Started also just seeing a lot of inconsistencies in logic of the left, a lot of contradictions. I saw the media telling people what to think as opposed to just presenting the facts and letting them make up their own opinions. It was very much a crafting of a narrative that was taking place that I finally saw. I really think we're in a new era of yellow journalism and sensationalism. And all of that made me kind of just stop. And I said, I can't be on the left anymore. And I didn't know, I was pretty politically homeless for about the next year, I would say. And it wasn't until 2020 that I kind of like reassessed again. And I said, okay, what do I believe? Well, individual liberty and freedom is paramount. I support small government, our Constitution. I support our, family and community. And I think communities helping each other are much more effective than the government ever trying to help anyone. And I believed in, rule of law, because without it, clearly, people do not do well in our society, as California has proven quite readily, and all of the violence that took place during 2020, guised as justice, and guised as protest. So yeah, well, you can't really call something a mostly peaceful protest while a building is literally burning down behind you. And I just realized more and more that my views were aligning with conservatism. And I had kind of started to be like, well, I align with conservatives, but I'm like not one. And 2020 was really just the year that I just said, nope, conservative. And that's okay. And I had had all these negative connotations about conservatives and conservatism, and just thinking that they were all these horrible people. And the longer time went on, the more I realized, no, I was just very intolerant. I was very intolerant of people on the other side of the aisle. I wasn't willing to listen to what they have to say, and I wasn't willing to try to understand. So I assumed that they were hateful and bigoted and horrible individuals, when in reality, they're not. I mean, there's horrible people on both sides of the aisle, right? Like, we can all agree on that one. There's definitely no political party makes someone good. But that's the problem, is the left tends to think that if you're a Democrat, or if you're just on the left in general, that you are good. And that's not the case. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It doesn't matter how you vote. That doesn't make you a good person. Your values do, and your morals do, and how you treat other people, I think that's a big problem with the left, is they're not acknowledging all of those things. They say, oh, what do you support? What are you against? And there's no nuance. When the vid and all the jab requirements started cracking down, I just looked around and I saw all these people saying, if you're not jabbed, you deserve, if you get sick, you don't deserve healthcare and you don't deserve to be treated. And basically telling people that they wished death upon them. And I am not jabbed. And I won't get it. And my children won't get it. And just nobody ever said that to me outright. But I saw this going on online. I saw people saying this. And I just was like, how did we get here? How did we get here that this group of people who claims to care about others so much is now saying, if you don't inject something into your body that you do not wish to, then you don't deserve to have treatment if you were to get sick? That's a scary world, And I feel like all of the lockdowns and all of that really was a bad test for society, and most of y'all didn't do well on it, quite frankly. Because if you're willing to throw away our economy and throw away individuals because you don't agree with them on something that all of a sudden is not really a big issue anymore, is it? Didn't take long. A couple years. They milked it for a couple of years, and then people just got sick of it. I think it was just very telling how people actually are as a group on the left. They're a mob. It's mob rule or else. It's comply or else. 2021 raged on, and I felt pretty isolated and alone, and I started watching TikTok probably in that summer, and it was just a bunch of fun videos, stupid videos, people trying to go viral. Then I noticed a shift, and I noticed that people were starting to talk about politics on there and news and present different perspectives and try to talk about things and discuss, and it was much more interesting to me. And I was like, oh, well, what's this all about? Because I'm intrigued, and I like to hear other perspectives, and I like to know where people stand on things. I started kind of making my own videos, but I still didn't really want to talk about politics, but the more videos that I made that were just kind of stupid in nature, and it's just mostly me practicing how to use the app. The more I realized that, hey, if I'm gonna make content, I want to actually talk about something that I care about, and I had seen more and more people kind of coming out as conservative, basically. And I just one day said, it's time, and I posted a video, got a lot of support on it. I really appreciated that support, and that I just went from there. And I started talking about politics a lot, and I started presenting my viewpoint, and I started, kind of trying to share like how I left the left and why, and the flaws that I see, and all of the hypocrisy and the contradictions that are just constant. And I'm super thankful for this experience. It's been a fantastic learning experience. It's really helped me be able to vocalize my viewpoints a lot better. I'm a writer by nature, so it can be difficult sometimes to express what I think verbally as opposed to, in writing or in text. And it's provided a community of people of all different types of perspectives and viewpoints and beliefs that I can interact with, and so many amazing people that I've met that have become friends of mine, and we talk regularly. And a lot of people say a lot of bad things about TikTok, but I've really enjoyed my time on there, and I've really enjoyed creating this community of people, and it is what it is. Take the good with the bad. I think one of the biggest things is, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you see all the hypocrisy, once you see all the contradictions, once you see people who are spouting about how much they care about women and women's rights, but yet when pro-life women come around, you know how many pro-choice women I see wishing harm upon them? When you see, someone who's black say, hey, I'm conservative, how many white liberals will come out and call them slurs and say that they're an Uncle Tom and put them down, call them a race traitor? It's like, what are you talking about? The color of someone's skin does not dictate how they vote or what they should believe. And for a group of people who claim to care so much about minorities, you sure don't care if they don't agree with you. And that's the truth behind it, is the left doesn't care about you unless you agree. And they don't think you're a good person unless you agree with them. They don't think that you can have respect for someone yet criticize their viewpoints and their ideology and their ideas. From the over-sexualization that's happening to children, to encouraging children to essentially mutilate themselves, to get permanent life-altering procedures done to them at a young age, instead of receiving the mental health treatment that they really need, but yet they speak about how much we need mental health treatment. It's all a bunch of contradictions, a bunch of propaganda and lies fueling the fire, and people believe it, and they eat it up. And I don't really, sit and say the right is the end-all be-all, because I vote pretty independently now. If there was an actual moderate Democrat who had policies that I could agree with, I would consider voting for them. But I don't see any of them. And, people like Tulsi Gabbard just get completely annihilated by the left. Because if you're not on board with them, then you're out and you're an enemy. And that's how they treat you. So many people say that I'm lying. So many people say I'm just making it all up for clout and views. It's like, why would I have the unpopular opinion if I wanted attention? It doesn't make any sense. Unless I just want to be this infamous person, but that's not really my vibe. So you can believe me, you can not. But at the end of the day, I'm a hell of a lot happier. I'm a hell of a lot more secure in myself now. And I might not have everything figured out, but goddamn, I'm doing a lot better. That's for sure. Getting out of that victim mentality and mindset. And that is why I left the left, because none of it makes sense. So thank you so much for hanging in there if you made it to the end with me. If you want to see more content from me, be sure to hit subscribe, like, do all the things, share with all your friends, and follow me on my other social medias, TikTok, Twitters, Instagrams. I'm all over the place. And I'm Freely Ashley, and I'm out.